Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 15 of the How to Do Psychedelics podcast. My guest today is India Mayorga. She is a visionary holistic therapist, ancestral healing guide, and transformational mentor devoted to restoring the sacred balance between humanity and nature. Coming from her Quebecer, Bribri, and Celtic Norse lineages, she bridges ancient wisdom with modern approaches to create transformative experiences of mind, body, and spirit. Her work centers on ancestral healing, energetic realignment, and sacred ceremony. Through cacao and psilocybin as medicines of the heart and spirit, India facilitates intentional journeys that help people heal generational wounds, remember their roots, and reconnect with their authentic selves. Beyond her role as a ceremonialist, India is a voice for decolonization and reciprocity, advocating for cultural respect, safety, and integrity in the growing field of plant and mushroom medicines. She carries a prayer that these ancestral ways remain protected, honored, and accessible as tools for collective healing and spiritual remembrance. At her core, India walks as a bridge between ancient and modern, indigenous and global, ceremony and daily life, inviting us all to remember who we are and how we belong to the earth. Wow. That's a bio that I 100% resonate with. And this is why I'm so excited to speak with you today, because I feel like our ethic and our approach to safety, to guardianship, to being a bridge between what's happening here in the wild Western world of medicines and psychosomatic psychotherapies in the ancient ways, which have much wisdom that yet need to be syncretized for what I believe to be a comprehensive and accessible and efficacious offering for medicine. So yeah, welcome to the show, India.
Gracias. Thank you so much for this invitation and for the introduction. It's so good to be here with you. And yeah, looking forward to where this conversation may lead us as, spirit to guide us. So yeah, just an honor to be here and share with you and your audience.
hmm So let's start on the topic at hand, which I feel like we both feel is like really salient. Is what does it mean to be like a guardian of these spaces, to bring in an ethic that truly invites in safety and protection for the masses of people coming into this work that are relatively new to it? What does that mean for you?
Wow, yeah, that's such a deep question because it can go so many ways. I guess we can start with baby steps. For me, the guardianship of a space really begins with the body and our own temple. So that's the first thing that once you worried about whenever we're talking about safety and guardianship of space is our body. Once we've become aware and conscious of that, which is a journey to itself, a never-ending journey, then I would say that where we reside, our home, our land, where we're stewarding, that becomes like the second space that we're to to guard and to safe keep. And that's done through prayers, through attention, cultivation, working with the land, knowing what's around every corner, every tree, every river, every rock, just being in relationship, building relationship and knowing where you are in the world. Right now, I'm located in the eternal waters in Costa Rica, Chiripo, lands of my
Yeah.
ancestor people of the Cabecar. And so for me is the space, is calling this home, is knowing where exactly I am. And then, you know, I'm gonna guess that what you were referring to was more in the sacred space of ceremony with plants and probably
Yeah.
fungi or any medicine. And so I think that the first two are so important to get to the third one because once you've prepare yourself with your body and your space, your safety there, and knowing yourself that well, and now that you've are a steward of your home and the safety of it and everything around it, then you already have the tools necessary to go into the sacred space of breaking your psyche and your ego into these realms that are completely off of this matrix of consciousness and then explore the unexplored. And so by having these practices of reciprocity with the land, of relationship with the land, of singing to the land, of knowing where everything is around you and where you are in the world, in your body, in your breath, in your like all of these tools, and get you to have safety within yourself, within the medicine, to trust yourself. And I think that that's one of, and we can go anywhere here, but I think that that's one of the topics at hand with facilitation, and then also being the voyeur. What is the responsibility of yourself as an explorer, a psychonaut, and then what is the responsibility of the one holding the space? And they both have responsibility.
That's right.
So yeah, I'll leave it at that and see what's come up for you on that.
Yeah, I like you presencing the power that spaces have. The space of our body, the space of our home, the space of the community that we're in, the space where we go to pray with others. And keeping in mind that when we gather to pray with others, all these different bodies are coming in from different places and different homes. And like there is already an amazing amount of energy that is efficacious to organize around, to understand what's being worked with. And for me, that points at the ethic of shamanic practice, like really understanding our relationships with all the different systems of spaces that are coming together, how to be in right relationship with them, in accord with them, how to honor the spirits of the land where you're doing the work, how to call in the ones that can support you personally, your ancestors, your animal totems and guides. It's great to have a good intention, and there's actually a very nuanced technology around that to get even that right. But if you're not calling in your support, your ancestors, your guides, like you're leaving a lot on the table that can be super helpful. And you don't want to give all of that power and responsibility to the facilitator and the guardian team because no one's going to know you as well as yourself. And so that's what I would add to that for sure. The shamanic principles, understanding yourself, your ancestry, your heritage to empower one's prayer. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll add to that and what's coming to vision is the moments I've walked several lands of family members, Yamipa, relatives, and we walk the land to protect it so that it can have good yield, so that no sickness comes in. So there's different practices, different rituals that one does throughout life and do throughout different specific times of the year, or because your spirit is leading you intuitively to do that. And so that's why I said that these practices should be a form of living. Life as a ceremony should be that.
Mhm.
They don't occur every time that I'm going to walk around the land that I'm sitting at and draw, these magic spells, if you may, or these invocations, or these
Right.
words, and these attunement between my mind and my heart, and when I know it's possible. But when it does happen, I'm already it's 5 steps ahead for when I'm sitting in ceremony and when I'm doing these
Mhm.
type of work, because it's part of who I am, is my embodiment, is part of my practice. So yeah, I'm not going to give that power to somebody else that's holding space for me. I'm going to be the own, shaman, oracle, groundkeeper, root system within my own a space, so that I can really anchor in, because at the end of the day, like you said, I'm the one that knows myself best. Nevertheless, there's going to be a lot of us in our journeys that may require those to assist us, and to hold that space for us. So I feel like when it comes to that, as we're awakening and as we're connecting to these types of ways, ancestral ways, shamanic ways, it is important to educate ourselves, to read, to find good guides, good people that are in this path, so that we are curious like a child. Just be curious like a child before you jump in and before you go into that playground. Just be curious, research, investigate, and then start making your own practices within your own body and your temple, your homes, so that you're more equipped whenever you're going into somebody else's house, somebody else's land, to sit in a ceremony with somebody else's energy directing, and everybody else in the group. If you're sitting in a group ceremony, it's just much it's just a lot more energy, and by cultivating these practices, self practices, home practices, you know your energy. You
Yeah.
know who you are, you know where you are, how you feel in your specific home, in your landscape, and then when something's off, or when something's coming into your home, into your temple, you know something's off because those are the subtleties of shamanism. Is that deep listening, deep quieting, so that you're one with everything. Is this animistic,
Mhm.
relationship with the animism of all, and that takes a journey. That takes time. That's why you know there are particular shamans in each of the indigenous communities that have been appointed because of lineage, because of their work, and they hold that space for the community. And now that we've broken that relationship, that remembrance within our own historic colonized ways, that has disrupted our relationship with nature and how we see ourselves with nature and the own shaman, the own oracle within us. So I feel like that's a great place to start before we even jump into ceremonies with psychedelics or entheogens, if you may.
Yeah. Know thyself is the core
Yeah.
tenet of any spiritual practice. And if you have a practice and a commitment and a dedication to knowing yourself through whatever prayers make sense for you, you're already more ready than most people who decide to just join a ceremony and don't really understand the the lifestyle of it, right? So if you live in that ceremonial lifestyle, at least this has been my experience. Like anytime I feel called to a rite of passage or transformation through group ceremony, or even with myself, I'm already really clear why I'm going. I know what's up for me. I've got my ancestor altar. I've got my personal altar. I have my guides that are constantly giving me some of the most amazing tarot readings that make it super clear, like what I'm moving through in my life. And it's kind of like life in general. If you just walk into an experience feeling like, okay, what's here for me? Well, you'll get what life wants to give you, maybe not necessarily what it is that you want or, you know, playing your own free will into it. Well, that's just kind of same thing with ceremony. It's like it's an experience of intensified, catalyzed, and accelerated life and consciousness. And you're going to get what you usually get just in like much bigger numbers and much bigger energy. And I like what you brought up around the practitioners. So it's my firm belief at this point, after finally being trained in introductory but still very powerful shamanic practice, which is something that my curiosity and just like intuitive knowing has brought me to. It is essential for people who are holding these spaces to be shamanic practitioners. And I say that because being a shaman and a shamanic practitioner is different. They can have similar tools and technologies and skills. A shaman is someone who's ordained by a particular tribe or lineage. A shamanic practitioner is someone who learns from someone like that, whether it's a shaman or actual shamanic practitioner, and they can still do this work. And so I want to make that really clear because the word shaman out there is first overused and appropriated a lot, but also a bit taboo. It's like, yeah, most people who claim to be shamans probably aren't. Could they be shamanic practitioners? Pretty likely. Yeah. And so I find myself being like really keenly curious whenever I'm going to be working with someone or someone comes to me and says like, well, I'm thinking about doing this, what are the questions to ask? And I've always had a bunch of questions to help discern whether something's safe or not. But the big one now is, do they understand how to work with shamanic technologies? Like, do they have a training? Are they following a lineage? Do they have someone who's teaching them this or supervising them this way? Because if they don't, they're missing a really core aspect of technology of providing safety, of working with the spirit, of being able to work with the energy in the space and guide what's happening for all there. And that becomes so much more important, especially in these large group ceremonies and many retreat centers where people coming together, they are not a community. They barely know each other. And so there's very little rapport, a lot of trust, a lot of confusion, a lot of uncertainty. And I don't know what kind of level of shamanic skill it takes to manage a space from people from all corners of the world that don't know each other, that the facilitator probably doesn't even know. I imagine it's a tall order. Part of me wants to say that we shouldn't even be messing around with that at this point. We should just be getting good with our families and our communities before inviting in strangers. I mean, that sounds harsh, but I think it's where we are. This is not a renaissance. This is a wild west. The
Yeah.
westernization and appropriation of these rites, it's wild, it's Western, and it's messy. And it carries the same ethos of like the Western mind. And I like to make an analogy here around that. Like the Western civilizations are very technocratic, they're very capitalist. And one of the biggest companies out there right now is Meta. And one of their little taglines for how they do things: move fast and break stuff. That's really great if it's an app or like a product or something out there, but you don't wanna move fast and break stuff when the product is consciousness. And I see that as happening more often than needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, Albert's to that endiness too is completely the opposite in our ancestral teachings of the different indigenous peoples across the globe. Is actually about slowing down and about listening and about the present moment. So whatever Meta is saying is completely giving you the wrong track and the wrong path to what it is to connect to what you said at the beginning, to know thyself. Yeah, I feel like, you know, we are now in this shift in humanity where we are feeling something of a huge magnitude because of what's taking place in the world and the atrocities that we see, not only because of our greed and because of our capitalist mindset, but also the disconnection to our heart, to our soul, to who we are as spirit. And we see it through the genocide and the Holocaust and the holy crisis that we're facing as humanity. And I don't think that this is something new. Perhaps it is that beginning and end of the cycle, the tail eating its head,
Mhm.
and this, forever everlasting matrix that we jump into to discover who we are. So yeah, the more that we can really return to the original essence, the original point of who we are, and in this moment as a human body, then the question is, okay, where was I born? Who are my parents and where did they come from? That's the beginning of our story. So with that, like you said, then we have uh, consciously, because we still have them, but consciously now we can draw upon these ancestors, these good ancestors, and then have a relationship and build rituals and build all of these frameworks so that they're sitting with us, gifting us with all the inheritance that we're to receive from them because they're part of us and we're part of them. And I know that through the matriarchy lineage that I hold through my mother and my ancestors, through my female part, um, it is very important that we preserve these narratives, these stories, these connections, and these teachings, because it's the only way that we can truly know why we're here, which is ultimately the question that we all have. Why am I here? What is my purpose? What did I came to experience? And because of our disconnection, because of what's happening in the world, then we're looking for this quick fix around finding myself and breaking my ego. And the plant medicines seem to be this escapism. And
Mhm.
so I think that we need to stop for a second, especially our Western side. I'm going to speak also because my father is Irish. He was born in
Mhm.
Belfast. He was the first generation to leave Ireland to come to Costa Rica. So I'm also half of my father. I know that part of the thinking of the Western side and what he also, taught me, and that is go, 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 get as fast as you can and as much as you can and grow, expand, conquer, uh, uh, you know, it doesn't matter who in the way, just take it. Pretty much. And where we're talking, it's more of a circle that we're talking here. It's like, how do we relate with each other? How do we first you cannot relate with others if we don't know ourselves. It just has to be that original point. We can't go into plant journeys, into all of these things unless we know we're ready for an initiation of this depth, because it is an initiation. Like any shamanic practice with psychedelics, entheogens are an initiation process. You go through
Mhm.
years, through different practices, through different connections to self and to nature, to be able to sit. And it used to be in a one-on-one basis with the shaman holding that connection to the all-knowing, to the oracle within. It was trusted. It was a trusted being within the community. That was their role. That was her role. That was his role. We trusted that because we knew that that was part of their path. And so I feel like we are going to need those facilitators and those guides and sort of space holders because I don't know if I can curse, but the world is kind of fucked right now, and a lot of
I would
people
agree.
are losing just their sense of humanity because we're attending to this meta universe, this meta reality, and it's going to go further and further away from us. So yeah, for me, it goes back to if you don't know your original essence through your genealogy, through conversating with, who my parents were, where they come from, what lands they come from, what were their practices, their rituals, what were their beliefs, if you have the opportunity visiting those lands to connect to that, or start having practices to connect with your ancestors and bring that into your everyday, then you're gonna feel that you have a whole army with you of guardians, of fellowship, of relatives,
Hmm.
and they can guide you because they've already experienced, they're already in this animate world, so they can give you clues, they can guide you, they can, take you, give you teachings, give you hints, those little synchronistic moments. There's so much. And that's when the world becomes magical because then you ask the question and you wait, then you become curious like a child, innocent, waiting to see if something will pop out in the dream time, in this time. So I feel like, yeah, curiosity and returning back to the origin to connect to our ancestors is a good way to start that journey before going through an initiation of sitting down with a entheogen to break your ego and let the medicine tell you now who you are and what you're supposed to be, and you know and have the solution, because it doesn't work like that, but that's what people probably believe.
And I like that you ended with this idea of like breaking the ego because so many Westerners, they want to destroy their ego. They want to shatter it. They want to move fast and break that thing and get enlightened. And I'm really happy that you brought up this idea of how important it is for the Western psyche to slow down. Like, of all of the insights and wisdom and epiphanies I've had over like a decade plus of experiences now in ceremony, underneath all of them is a deeper reminder every time to slow down and to pay more attention. And that's so necessary right now. I think it's at the core of so much of the tragedy and pain that's being perpetrated as people are trying to figure out how to do this work, how to offer this work. Because unless you slow down, you're not going to learn how to take care of yourself. You're not going to make time for your personal practice. You're not going to make time to pray. And once you start slowing down to do that and you pay attention to the changes it makes in your life, you start to realize that it's safe to go slowly. You can notice more of what's happening. And the ancestor part is just like, it still blows my mind how much support is there. I mean, so many of us, I for one can say, and many people I know, first generation in our line to step into work like this, literally carrying the burden of generations to break curses. And got to be careful because once you start getting to the point where you've worked through a lot of your own stuff and your body is open and sensitive and resilient, and you're like, cool, I figured me out mostly. Then you start to work through things in your past, in your lineage, and for those people around you. And then things get really wild. And it's incredibly important at that point to understand how to include your own guardianship practices and how to be really safe and take care of your own temple.
Yeah, I
So,
think that that's why we have to be mindful with our intentions and why we want to do things, whatever they may be, whether it's sitting in a ceremony or creating a space, a container, coaching, whatever it is. What is the intention behind it? Because sometimes the good intentions do not lead to good results. And so by connecting to our lineages, we're able to discover more of ourselves. And then by healing ourselves, we're in this entanglement theory that everything then is shifting, from past to future generations, ancestral generations, because you are the one shifting all of that. And it's so mind boggling to think of that because you're affecting all of it, present, past, and future. And that's why you have to remain in the present so that you can anchor that energy and it can ripple across those time and spaces and dimensions. And then the shift is coming. And that's how we quantum leap. What they say when we quantum leap is because this is happening. And if more of us were in in those subtle slow down, before we speak, before we say yes to things, to honor our boundaries, to honor what we know for ourselves to be best, to listen to our body whenever it responds to something, a yes or a no, uh-huh or not. Just not always to lead with the head, just to sit with your heart, with your emotions, with your everything, and just let it sit down. That's why my elders, I find them in hammocks all the time. That's why hammocks is such a perfect integration tool for me. It's like you
Mhm,
just sit there and you must just sit and breathe and contemplate. And this is such a, ancient shamanic technology, if you may. It's so simple, but not a lot of people can do it because they're on this go, 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 one, 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 that they need to just bring their circadian rhythm back to the same of Mother Earth. That's the whole
mhm,
point. So that we can listen to what she has to say because we're their children. With the seeds, we're connected, and then follow our path, our true path, our true
mhm.
purpose. So, yeah.
I like that you brought in this image of the hammock because it reminded me of a story that feels pretty salient here. And that one of the greatest teachings from my first mentor is like relaxation is a high art. And so, as far as the hammocks go, I'm reminded of how the Colombian Taitas do their ceremonies with Yahe. They have people sit in their hammock, super relaxed, and they go to them, they play their harmonica. And then, more often than not, from what I've heard in my own experience, a true shaman, and I haven't experienced any of like a ceremonial kind of medicine facilitator nature until I went to Colombia. They do so much of the purging for you. I had my first Yahe ceremony in Colombia before my vision quest, and I was prepared for it to be like just so intense. Everything I've heard about it, so purgative, so violent, so messy. And I'm halfway through and I'm like, I'm just chilling, I'm vibing. And I've had a good amount of medicine. And I go to talk to my buddy and I'm like, yeah, I'm having a good time, man. Like, I expected more challenge. He's like, yeah, like, check that out. It doesn't have to be so hard. And I look up at the altar. I'm like, where's the facilitator? Where's the shaman? Oh, like he's out in the bathroom purging for all of you. This is why it's so easy for you guys. Like, just notice what mastery looks like. And I thought a little more expansively, you know, from what I understand about the Colombian medicine culture, they're not traveling around the world like rock star medicine servers the way that, Hunikun and the Yawanawa do. And I love their work most of the time. But I feel like, fly by night ceremonies showing up in your community, like in Chiripo, and saying, hey, we got medicine. And people are like, oh, thanks God, this must be a prayer answer. I'm like, no, that's not what you want. These people in Colombia, they're doing the work and building community in the way that so many communities, my own here, talk about, but it's really in practice. Like they're not paving the roads to their farms because they don't want a lot of traffic. They're already creating their agreements and inroads with neighboring farmers to barter and to trade. And after I had my time there on the mountain at my Hamblecha, my vision quest, they said to me, well, you're welcome in this family and you can bring people with you if you come back, but like one or two at a time. And no patience, please. Like we're here to work with people that are ready, and we're here to create the next generation of doctors, like the kind of ethic and doctors that the world really needs. And I so respected that. I finally felt like I found a lineage that is humbling me to my core, and I feel so grateful because I found teachers of this magnitude.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we all have to be very much in gratitude for these ancestral keepers of the New World, from North America to our island to all the way down to the Condor, the serpent of the Chipivo, and all of these beautiful Amazonian tribes, including my own here in Costa Rica. Like, the resilience and the way to guard the teachings is what is allowing us to remember through these plant medicines. And we are not doing a good job as bridges. And I'm referring to bridges, those of us that are going into indigenous communities to build relationships, to, with good intentions, help them to grow so that they can have sovereignty, so they can have water, electricity, whatever it may be. And then what we do is we bring this Wetiko consciousness, which is
Yeah.
spoken within the Native American. And so what we do is with good intentions bring a disruption in the order of things because we haven't live there long enough. That's why I said know yourself and then know the lands.
Yeah.
So in the culture, it usually takes about 2 years for you to sit with the land and then to know where the east goes, where the west is, where the sunset, sunrise, what happens to the winds, what happened during rainy season, permaculture
Mhm.
principles. This is
Mhm.
something that all indigenous cultures have done across, the old world and the new world. Just being awareness of these allows you then to know, how to move. Yeah, and I feel that this disconnection is what is it's allowing humanity just to lose itself, lose its grounds by sitting down and really, if we want to help these indigenous communities, I feel because this is my own experience. I'm currently writing a book about how to be a good bridge. Because it is. We have to become
Some
good
work.
bridges. I
Yeah.
consider myself half a foot outside of my indigenous territory and half on the western side because that's the way I grew up. That's my paradigm. I'm a half breed. I have my father's teachings, my mother's teachings, and I can do that within my own people, and it's getting harder because of all the indoctrination that is happening, catching up to the lands of our indigenous people with education, the health system, with all of it that we've already endured through our ancestors. They're just receiving it. So um, how do we become good bridges? How do we, and this is something new. We haven't done it. We haven't done it
Exactly.
yet.
This
And
has
that's why
not
we
been done
need,
before.
no. And that's why we need to slow it down. And I feel, honestly, Anka, I feel that one of the keys and the clues is to really sit with the elders. And elders, I mean somebody that's 60 and beyond and is a community anchor holder, and somebody that is a matriarch. It has to be a woman, and it has to be somebody that is watching after the future generations to have these conversations, just to get your foot in the door. And yeah, as the tribes reconnect back to their remembrance, you gave the example of the Hunikuni. It's been, or the Yawana, yeah, it's been 30, 40 years since they reconnected back to their ways.
Mhm.
And then all of these good intentions came to help this tribe. And then what it became was an exploitation, an appropriation, a capitalist movement. And it's hurting not only the medicine, but it's hurting the communities, hurting their identity. Their ego is now dancing with the darkness, if you may, in a
Mhm.
way, because you can dance with both worlds when you do plant medicine. You can dance with the light, you can dance with the dark. That's why there's brujos and brujas in,
Yeah.
in in the medicine path. And that's why perhaps that brujo or that shaman was purging, because he took it upon himself, or something else, who knows. There's so many reasons, but what I wanted just to digest is just the the tendency that we have because of this go go go, let's do, to try to honor the cycles of what nature is showing us to slow down. The equinox just passed, like it's time to just, now it's entering a new cycle of rebirth. What does that mean? It's the same in life, it's the same in the projects that we want to cultivate, and when we're building relationships with these maestros and maestras of medicines. I would personally work with Chipibo just because they have a longer lineage of working with this medicine rather than the Colombians or the Hunicui. And that's my preference. I tend to go to those that have held it frequency longer, and that have like a medicine that is worked through the night and in silence. And the icaros or the songs are only brought when the medicine itself is asking for healing rather than the whole show, like there's a lot
Hmm.
of show happening. And I tend to be the one that likes to sit up straight, quiet all night and just sit with the medicine in silence. I love that part of, knowing myself. So enough of distractions. I don't like distractions during ceremony, but, sometimes it's needed just to get the joke of the whole paradigm that we live on.
Yeah, and depending on the medicine too, like some medicines like you to move around and express, like the cacti love the movement and the dance and the
Mm.
expression. I like a lot of the stuff that you brought up here, like, the Shipibo, for example. Some of my favorite ayahuasca experiences, and what I love most about the way they do it is everyone gets like special direct attention, like everyone gets doctored. And so that's super helpful, especially if you have a group of people bringing in all kinds of random energy and trauma that can be transferred and counter transferred. At least we know everyone's getting some deep healing work. And like I would like to see that in every ceremony that especially has a group. And like, yeah, they're different than the Colombian tribes. They're different than the Hunikuan. Like, from what I understand, after going to Escawatakayawe with the Hunikuan, I learned that their story and the reason why they built that particular yearly ceremony is because for a while they lost their way with the medicine and they were poisoned by a lot of Western disease of technology and drugs and alcohol. So it was sort of like a reclamation. And their intention around creating this yearly ceremony where they invite Westerners in has a beautiful intention to like repair that cultural rift to work together. But I also see them kind of like reaching a little too far and going a little too fast and serving too many people. Like in 2 weeks, 200 people having 10 to 12 ceremonies with no integration and no community support afterwards. That's just barbaric. And that to me points at the need for this new thing to be syncretized. Like, okay, these jungle tribes with ayahuasca, with their history, they know something about these medicines and these rites of passages that we don't. But we also understand our unique Western pathology and disease and the Wetiko, as you put it, in ways that they don't. We need different kinds of help. We aren't tribalized people. We aren't connected to ourselves, to God, to nature, much less each other as a community. We also don't understand our own rites of passage, which is something that community offers. You know, women, they go through their natural rites of passages when they get their moon, when they come into cronehood through sorry, I just forgot that now. What happens? It's
Menopause.
menopause. But men, especially men, they need to be guided through these things. And like I work predominantly with men, and you're right, like you said earlier, many of the people coming to the medicines, their soul is leading them to a rite of passage. And it's going to happen one way or another. If you don't get led or guided, again, especially as men do, it's going to come up at some point. There's going to be years where you're reaching out for drugs, sex, alcohol, like validation through social media. You're going to become depressed and anxious. And I see this all the time. They start reaching for the mushrooms or the cannabis. Like their soul's like there's something more natural. It's going to get you there. And then they have a wild experience at some point. Sometimes it's an awakening that's safe. Sometimes it's more of a psychotic break, which is a lot more challenging to handle, especially with our lack of understanding of what to do and to discern between the two. And so yeah, I want to speak a little more to the Wetiko, right? Like the mind virus here, largely from the Western point of view, not having rites of passage, not understanding what community is, not being connected to God, being told that our gods are money, our AI, or technology, our power. And largely, many of the people being in control are uninitiated males. They're not men. So they're tyrants and they're bullies and they're still very much afraid and they're not mature. And so, despite our best efforts and intentions, when Westerners have these moments of insight and epiphany during a ceremony with medicine, like, yes, they're inspired and they want to share, they want to help others do it. But sometimes they go too fast and they just use their resources to create a retreat center. It's like, well, it'll work for me, it'll work for everybody else, but they're missing so much. And this points to the idea of like colonization and oppression. Most of Western society, if not all of us, we grew up in systems of oppression. like people telling us what to do, what is right. No teaching, no dialogue, no counsel form of conversation. Our education system is like banking. They put things into us, they have us regurgitate them so what we could become a good listener, a good employee, but not a sovereign, free individual. Like we're not free people. We carry a lot of this slavery, like a subtle kind of slavery to our oppressors. And here's the thing, when we start to notice that we're oppressed and we want to free ourselves, the only thing that we know from our programming, which looks like freedom, is being the oppressor. And so at a certain point, when we try to help people, we're actually going to be oppressing them. This whole idea of humanitarianism, the way it's actually acted out, it's more like, I know something you don't. I have something that you don't. Let me come to your land and give you something. We'll give you jobs on this big piece of property that we have built, or this retreat center. We'll teach you things that we know. But where's like the sitting down in council with the locals and being like, how are y'all doing? What do you need? What can we do together? That's the revolutionary act of sovereignty and engendering freedom that we don't see. And like, I noticed this in myself too. The ways I started to come into this work and try to help people understand how they could be safer, I was angry and I was pointing the finger and telling people what was unsafe. I wasn't wrong, but I wasn't kind. So people couldn't really listen to me.
Mhm.
And I also recognize that in my own way, that I'm aware of anyway, like I live in a really rustic, simple Tico cabin here in the mountain. I make a bid. I support colonization by paying way too much for it. Even against like my greatest conversations, like I pay $650 for a cabin. It's kind of ridiculous. And it's kind of one of the reasons why I'm not looking to move in anything more elaborate or grandiose, because this simple kind of stoic stark kind of living, it keeps me closer to the plight of people that I want to understand and help. And I don't mean just the Ticos and Costa Ricans, like all the dejected people around the world who are suffering and who don't have a lot of means to meet their ends and are afraid and don't know what freedom actually looks or tastes like.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're sort of in a pickle, I guess humanity is. I mean, we've been indoctrinated. There's been a systematically agenda imposed for more than for thousands of years, and the education system kicked in the last 400 years, which is just like putting our children like in a completely different path and taking them away from parenting. So, I mean, this whole path of initiation that we're entering is the generation that I hope gets to lead the future generation into connecting more to themselves, into the rituals, into the animism, into the shamanism, into the rites of passage, and all the things that we lacked of in our growing, so that we have a chance to build these communities, these pockets within planet Earth. Yeah, the grand majority is just not going to, I don't believe the grand majority is going to get there, to be honest. It's going to just be a few that are waking up. If you're not in the path already, I don't think it's gonna I think it's gonna just take a miracle for you to get on the path. Alright, if you're not there yet. If you haven't started
Mhm.
yet, I think you lost the train. So if you're listening to this, you're on the train. Um, because it is hard, it takes a long time, things like I said, they're heating up, there's a whole agenda, it's like 1984, George Orwell in front of us is just
Mhm.
a crazy novel, and until you can separate yourself, differentiate yourself from this crazy world, and you're in the Truman Show, then, yeah, then you can step out, then you can become the shaman and walk between realities and know yourself and know how to work with your ego as well. Because one of the things that you mentioned is like, yeah, people are looking to break their ego, but it's not dissolving completely your ego, because my persona, India Mayorga, still has a role to play. It still has a voice, a character. It still has a dream, a vision. I'm unique. There's nobody else like me. I'm the only energetic imprint like this. Only my thumbnails are like this. Nobody else. So I still come to play a role within my own ego. Is just knowing that we're here to be in service of each other,
Mhm.
like we're here to be in service of each other. If we're not doing sacred work, if we're in the spiritual path as facilitators, as ceremonialists, as guide, as retreat center, wellness centers owners, whatever it is, but we're in the path of providing those spaces, and we're not truly talking about decolonizing ourselves, about, what it means to be white presenting and having white supremacy tendency behaviors. What does it mean to really be trauma informed? What does it mean to be in reciprocity with the local communities? If we're not doing any of that, really, and this is something that I keep learning more and more within this liberation mystery school that I'm a part of, is that we're just not doing anything. We're just bypassing, we're pretending, we're just another Instagram account with more likes, and hopefully somebody, signs up on our $1,000 course, and off we go. And I mean, for me, it's greater than that. It's who are we going to be in this present form, and what is our gifts? What are our gifts to give back to humanity in a way that is aligned and authentic to ourselves, our purpose, and that is in the sacred path of all relations for all women and for all future children? If we're not thinking that 7 generations ahead, if we're not cultivating that within our own immediate community, like you and I belong to the same community. Like, these are conversations to be had. If you're not doing that within your own community, activating your own community like this as a spiritual, put the pronoun, the adjective there, then we're just not doing the work. We're just not here. Honestly, we're just pretending to be, part of these spectacles. So yeah, I feel like that we can learn so much from these indigenous cultures, and we have to be so careful as well of these initiations, because we can distort the way that they're entering. And maybe now it's time to slow it down and stop it for a little bit. Maybe it's
Love
time
that.
to just take a breathe, and let the earth just take in all of the dump that we dumped on the
Mm,
rivers, on the earth, on the land of, from Costa Rica, because there's so many different medicines and things being held up here from all these plant medicines that don't even belong to Costa Rica, that are
yeah.
coming from the outside world. One of the things that I'll share, again, I'll pass it on, is that, one of my prayers is that when people do come to Costa Rica as indigenous people, that you as a bridge bringing them, because they don't travel by themselves. That doesn't happen. Somebody brings them to travel, to provide a ceremony, to provide a space. Like, there's a bridge.
Hmm.
So it is the responsibility of the bridge to know the landscape, to build relationships with the local indigenous people if there are, and to let your shaman, practitioner, medicinal man or woman know where they're located, who the nearest tribe is, see if they can do an offering, if you can go visit one of the communities, have a conversation. It doesn't have to be around plant medicine. It could just be an intercultural conversation. These are so important, and it's just is honoring the fact that you're coming to lands that are not from your ancestry, and that you're about to open a container with all of these people that are not even from the land either. They're probably tourists, and they're going
Hmm.
to be dumping all of these energies into the lands of, in this case, Costa Rica. And then who's doing the clearing, the offering, the pagamentos, like the mamo says, the kogi says, to
Hmm.
restore balance, to restore that balance. I was part of a retreat center, and we had protocols. I had a protocol with the team about what would happen before a ceremony would come in, what we had to do with the land, how we had to clean ourselves in the river, how we had to activate. No alcohol was allowed. No, if you did, then you were not welcome into the land, because I would do not mix alcoholic spirits with any of the plant medicines. Off you go, because they just open more portals and more
Hmm.
channels for entities to appear. So I was very, very cautious, but that's because I really consider myself to be a steward of that land, that where the retreat center was, as part of the founders. And as a woman, it was my duty and responsibility to ensure that the rivers, the trees, the animals, all sentient beings, the creepy crawlers, the birds, everything was fine with what we did
Yeah. Yeah.
energetically, with our cleaning supplies, with how we talked, and like our sexual energy. Everything had to be in order for us to open up a space of sacred medicine. So
Hmm.
I'm not sure everybody does that. And it is a great responsibility to be the land steward of a place receiving voyageurs, and then maestros, maestras from all parts of the world with medicines that do not belong to Costa Rica. And to be that anchor, to be that bridge, it is a lot of responsibility. You are accountable to Mother Earth, to creation, creator, and to your family, your relatives. You are accountable. So whether you know it or not, it is your responsibility. And what goes around comes around. That's just the magic of life.
Ooh, karma can be a bitch, especially in this work. Yeah, I like this ethic you're bringing on about the bridge. I want to add more to that. Because I know I kind of made a comment earlier about a lot of the tribal elders that travel around and offer their medicine. And from my experience, a lot of it has been pretty messy and lacking the proper respect. And all the points you brought up, like, I agree with. And at the core of this is like, if you're not trying to create community, then you're not doing their work properly. And I feel like one of the core ethics for people who travel and bring elders to other land, when you're merging so much energy from different lands and cultures, the people, like, spend your time with the people who you're calling in, help them get to know one another, whether it's virtually weeks beforehand or like some time while you're there in the land. That's incredibly important, that they understand the medicine being brought to them, that they understand the tradition, the culture, they understand the facilitator, the shaman, like, get to spend some time with them, right? And then afterwards, how are you keeping these people together? How are you keeping them engaged? How are you supporting them in sharing the story of what they experienced and how it's going to be applied, embodied, absorbed into their life? And this also goes for any retreat center. I mean, to this day, I still have not come across a retreat center that I would refer anybody to, because some of them even lack the basic sort of intake to understand from a psychological point of view someone's background, but much less like what their cultural sort of baggage is, like their why, not just the intention, but like, why are you really feeling drawn to this? Like, where are you in your life? You don't know? Let me help you figure that out so I can bring in this like mythological information into this, and then hopefully have the shamanic ethic to be able to organize and work with that energy. And again, to keep people together in community and to care for them. You know, this really hit home for me recently. Like, we have a really popular retreat center here in the mountain that people come to from all over the world. And about a year ago, this is based upon the information I know, some woman came in and she was already very unwell and doing a lot of cannabis, a lot of her own medicine work. And just want to point out, chronic cannabis use is highly correlated with having incredibly difficult experiences with other psychedelics. And it's something that people aren't even talking about who are schooled in psychedelic pharmacology. I just went through a course in that and there was barely any conversation about it, but I have seen this happen so many times. From what I understand of this story, from so many different sources, there is no feasible, practical, rational reason that woman should have been served any ayahuasca. None whatsoever. And she had a psychotic break afterwards. And like, there was no support. Like, I found her at a local community event and I put the pieces together. She invited me over to chat with her because she understands I do this kind of work to help people put pieces together. Part of her was enough online to realize I need some help. And once I got that story from her, I'm like, all right, there are, implicated parties here. We need to get people involved that were part of her recent story to help her out. So I reached out to the people in the community, the people at the retreat center who have a duty to support her afterwards. We did our best. She made it home, but about a year later, recently, she passed, right? Am I saying it's the fault of the retreat center? No. But are they implicated? Yeah. Do I think it could have been avoided? Hell fucking yeah. Do I feel like she should have had any ayahuasca at all, from what I know and corroborated by so many people? Absolutely not. And I don't feel like it's too hard to be able to spot that. And I feel like if I continue to receive like accounts like that, and this isn't the first, this is the most like wild and intense story, what purpose do these people have doing this work? They're lacking the community structure to care for people. Never mind like questioning their capacity to like shamanically guide a space. Like, that woman was just left wandering the mountain on her own, and people in the community were like, what is going on here? That doesn't feel safe to me. And so, as a bridge myself, I find myself having conversations with people in the community who have this understanding around guardianship, integration, protection. Like, what is our role? And I don't know entirely, but one thing I'm a little more clear about is it's important for our communities to know these stories, to be as well informed and aware about what has happened, what the results are, and information like we're talking about so they can better discern and choose where to put their life in someone else's hands.
Yeah. Yeah, first and foremost, just sending, yeah, so much love and just from an energetic sense to the family of the lady that passes. I also was sort of in that awareness of what happened here in Costa Rica. Listen, Costa Rica is becoming a hub for all of these medicines and for all these wellness retreat centers to pop in. I was part of the psychedelic of Costa Rica, and this was one of the conversations that we've had constantly. It's like, is it clinical? Is it doctors then would assume this? How do we stop it? It's just going too fast. And the truth is, it's going to keep happening because people want it. So if there's a demand, it will happen. So then we're based with you have to educate yourself. You have to do the work. You have to. You cannot trust the decision on somebody else's hand based on a page on a website. You cannot. You have
Right.
to investigate. I mean, listen, when I was going to do ayahuasca for the first time, it took me 10 years to get to that place to finally arrive and say, whoa, I'm ready now. Perfect. Now it's
Mm,
coming back into my field. From the first moment, I was like, whoa, I'm going to sit with Aya. 10 years later, finally it came to fruition, and I had to be so careful with my investigation into the where I wanted to go. I knew it was the Amazon. I knew that I wanted to experience it with somebody, like I said before, with the Chipivo lineage. And I was traveling with my mother. And I was inviting my mother because I wanted it to be a ritual ceremony to break a lot of our major key
mhm.
patterns and, things that were disruptive to our lineage. And I wanted to clear that up once for and for all with my mother, 2 generations. And so um, there are retreat centers that are doing good job. Like this is one of them, the Temple of the Way of Light in Peru, in Iquitos. They have a great understanding of this bridging of what's happening. One of the things that you said is, well, indigenous communities know each other. Yes, you know who the neighbor is, you know who she's
That's
going
right.
with or he's sleeping with, or what time they came in, or if the kids did that, or everything is known within the community because it's a community. And so the shaman already knows, their ancestors, their illnesses, if any of their relatives came before for any work. It's so intertwined. And so now we're moving into, bringing that technology into the Western world, right?
Yeah.
And so we're
Yeah.
trying to adapt something that was built for community and relationship with this gnosis, this knowing
That's
each
right.
other because we know each other, because we see each other in the market, in the morning, in the field, in the rivers, that we're
Mhm.
building, and we're living the same landscape with the same ecology. Like our
Yeah.
epigenetics is already informed with the same information. We're in the same formation, our body, everything, our knowledge, everything. And so, yeah, what do we do when we're moving and altering all of these sacred instruments within the ceremony space, the space holding the sacred ceremony? Well, then we need to be creative, we need to be innovative, we need to bridge the new with the modern. I mean, that was about 7 years ago that I went to the Temple of the Way of Light, and I'm not sure if it's changed or it has. I saw Gabor Mate was taking some of doctors to get initiated in ayahuasca so they can understand
Mm,
what goes into a patient. So it is a good place. And they had the preparation. They had the 3 months before. They give you the rules, they give you the boundaries, they tell you what to
mm,
do, what not to do. They had the team ready, the Western team ready with, psychological tools, somatic tools, yoga, breath, everything that was needed for us to just drop in and just be in the place. It was a 10-day thing. It's not an in and out thing. We're getting to know each other. It was a small circle. It was only 12 of us in that maloca. We spent time together morning, afternoon, day, and night before we went into the first one. It was a gradual dose. It was a gradual ceremony. It was the way that the people orchestrated with the dietas and the medicines and the bath and everything else. And the integration portion. So there are places like this. I feel that that's what's happening is that this wellness industry in Costa Rica, and I'll speak just because of my own experience and because I'm from
Hmm.
Costa Rica.
Yeah, please
I
do.
think that is just, something that started in the 70s when a lot of people just started coming to Costa Rica to do permaculture, to live in the jungles and to do all of this, right? The golding, the surfing, and then wellness came. And since then, I think the plants have traveled here, ayahuasca and peyote and all of these other medicines. And it was done within these foreign people that were coming to Costa Rica to live in Costa Rica, where they were doing it perhaps, within their own community, within their own circles. And I feel like some of them have now acquired years of doing this without proper training, without proper education, without proper, you know, it takes years for you to become a medicine carrier of ayahuasca. I said
Hmm.
no to my maestro because I'm like, there's you have to have this reciprocity with the plant. Like now you owe the plant. Now you have to be in service of the plant. It's like a whole thing that happens. I'm like, no, thank you, gracias. It's not my medicine and it's not of our people. So no, I'll keep you as my teacher and maestro because it's such deep responsibility. And we're talking years and it doesn't grow here. So I rather go where it grows. And that means the Amazon. So that would mean relocating myself for how many years? Because it takes them from an early age of teenage years, their first rite of passage, to adulthood until they
Hmm.
get their own songs from the medicine that says, "Oh, you're graduating, by the way, because now you have your song." The medicine, not a human
Hmm.
being, not a certificate, not a 3-month thing, nothing. The medicine itself. So that's why I try to, and my best tend to go with people that have initiated themselves with indigenous elders and gone through that. Uh, but even so, I feel that the bridges are needed to bring that Western, Carl Jung perspective of what happens during these spaces, and then to bring all of the practices that we are incorporating in this new age of spiritualism and really use them, the yoga, the prostrations, the breath work, the visualizations, the meditations, all of these things come into a really nice integration and preparation to help the indigenous elder, shaman, medicine woman, man that are in a time and space where his community is circular, is relationship. I know my people and I know what I'm doing to bringing them into a spaceship of all these diseases, of these wetiko, of all these spirits, all these things that they've never had to deal with, that they're now just opening to. Schizophrenia in an
Hmm.
indigenous community, that would mean that somebody probably took a plant, probably Reina de la Noche, and now we gotta sit and we gotta see if that was what happened because the schizophrenia
Hmm.
just doesn't happen like that. But we know our community, we know our people. So yeah, it will be great if we can go back in. Let's have more intimate circles. Let's go into a preparation journey line. Let's get to know each other,
Hmm.
feel each other. Ooh, you know what? I'd rather not sit there. I just doesn't feel good in my body. I'm gonna honor that. And then jump into ceremonials, knowing the facilitators, asking the questions, asking the boundaries, their safety protocols, their experience, what happens in case of, what if somebody lies in their form and they're actually taking medication and they go into a state? Do you have a hot? You have to ask as many questions so that
Yes.
you know you're safe and secure because once you take off, with the plant or the fungi, you're off. There you can't do shit pretty much, if you're like in deep, deep, deep journey, like that's why you need somebody to look after, just to hold that space in case you need it. So yeah, we just have to be taking things slowly now. Just slower, just slow it down. Just let's slow it down, slow
Slow
it.
it down. It reminds me of like one of my favorite quotes of all time. I think it was like Aristotle. He says, "Well begun is half done." And I love how you shared that you spent like 10 years following that calling before you felt prepared to go to that retreat center. And thank you for presencing the way they do that work. Like it's a really powerful counterpoint to a lot of the messy stuff out there. And I hope more centers like that open up that offer the complete comprehensive care necessary for the Western psyche to enter and to feel safe. I also want to double down on what you said about the proper trainings. Like for these master plants, like the ayahuascas, the ibogas, like apprenticeship is the way it always has been, and it's the way it will always be. There is no certification for this. Western Psychotherapeutic Board is going to prepare you for this. Everything out there, and I've read everything that comes out through like maps and associated parties, it's all didactic, it's all theory. There's hardly any experiential aspect. And that's where we got to go to actually learn the wisdom. And then we have to supplement that, rather complement it with an understanding of like, okay, the Jungian psychology is helpful right now because that's where a lot of the Western psyche is at. I believe Western psychology is helpful to a degree because it's symptomatic, it's diagnostic, and done well, it can bring someone to like basic functioning psychic baseline. But then after that, which Jung was pretty good at as a bridge, talking about archetypes and dream and symbolism, after that point, when you're stable, you need someone to help you develop a relationship with spirit, with God, the animist world, the mystical world, the shamanic world. And then we have like a fully operational psyche, not just here, but like all around us. And I think
Yeah.
that is like the deep syncretic work that we need to be doing right now.
Yeah,
And
I mean, in my own path, I have my elders. I have, those women and those men that have uh, been my teachers. I'm a student of so many, and I need them because they have more experience than I do. They have walked that path. I have a Chipibo Maestro. When I first
mm,
sat down, we had to sit down and I had to tell him our lineage, where we came from, our lands. My mother spoke to him. It was a whole sit down with the Chipibo just to let him know what the deal was, because we came from an unbroken lineage, and we wanted to do some heavy duty work in our bloods, genetics. And then with everyone, I think it's important that we sit down and knowing ourselves and saying, hey, this is me. This is where I was born. This is where I come. These are the traumas that my family has endured. These are the patterns that they have gone through. This is what I've done. Knowing thyself, because then you're able to allow the facilitator to then bring more tools and more things to help you in that journey. And then for the shaman to have a better time, or the medicine man or woman to have a better time assisting what they're supposed to be doing, which is a channeler of the medicine. That's it. They're holding the frequency in the channel, and any distortions, they'll shush them away. And if you must go through a journey of self exploration into the darkness of your subconscious patterns, then you will. And they will hold that space, or she will hold that space, so that you come out beautifully, breathing and alive, all great. So, yeah, elders, teachers, we need them. If you're a facilitator and you don't have that person in your life, then what are we doing here? Who like, just very narcissist of you to do that. We need to have um accountability. And that's when we can have honest dialogue with people, a circle, a community, elders, teachers, that say, where we can say, listen, I've never had to do this. And I'm wondering, like, what is your field? What is your intake?
mm,
I had a group that was,
supervision.
sorry?
Like we need supervision. Any practitioner needs someone to bring that their matters too, because we don't know everything.
No, and we never, end this journey. And at some point, I believe that the medicine becomes our teacher. Once
Yes.
we've learned from our teacher, the human body teacher, then we keep the journey with the medicine. The medicine becomes our teacher, and he or she depends on the medicine, masculine, feminine. It speaks to us, whether it's tobacco, peyote, ayahuasca, mushroom, speaks to us to keep that. And we still have to have that counsel to reflect on the things that the medicine is
Mhm.
leading us to be held accountable, responsible, because we don't live in the same tribal ways that we used to. So, so yeah, have community, have a group of people that can hold you accountable, that you can reflect on. If you're a facilitator, and bring those conversations alive. That's what keeps me really in order, in check. And that's when I change my I thought better or, with good intentions, she'll holy shit, I could have just damaged the whole container because I didn't think of that or I was thinking only of myself.
Hmm.
So more eyes, the better. I think that we are in a generation that the first time that we've had technology in this generation that is being birthed. It wasn't happening in my generation. I don't know if it happened in yours. So this is a new beginning of technology, new beginning of disconnection, new beginning of having to deal with more than our indigenous elders, medicine shamans have dealt with, and so we need to honor that bridging by bringing those tools and then educating ourselves. I educated myself because I knew I
Hmm.
couldn't just keep it, just the dirt and the fire. Although the dirt and the fire can help me a lot, I still needed a framework for preparing the person that was about to sit with me. And the last thing I'll add to that, with what you said is, these organizations that are accrediting or putting you in a program or these clinical studies and ways of carrying psilocybin. I tell my students, um, if you haven't sat in a full
Hmm.
dose, superhero dose, why are you holding space for others? If you can't even sit by yourself in a superhero dose, not yet, not yet.
You need the
It's a journey,
initiation.
and you don't have to rush it. You have to become as a shaman in the Siberian sense and in all senses of the different meanings of the word. For me, it means to be an anchor, to be able to see all that it needs to be seen in this animate world, and to be so present that you can help facilitate the movement of the energy as a space holder because you're in that frequency where you're is no longer yourself, but you're containing the energy of the field to hear the subtleties of the passenger, the voyager, so you can assist with the singing or with the humming or with what the incense, the fire, the agua florida, whatever it is, the limpia, because the medicine is guiding you. No, the medicine is guiding. So how can you do that in a clinical form if you haven't even if you're not if you haven't even explored your psyche with that medicine? How can you hold that space for somebody else if you never experienced what they may be? And you can't even be in that same frequency. You can't even hear the subtleties of the message just that the medicine is giving you as a space holder because you're almost a puppeteer in that sense of the medicine. That's why I say you have to be so careful which medicine you choose to work with as an ally, because you have to owe that medicine, and the medicine pretty much owns you in a sense, and you owe the medicine. And
Hmm.
so reciprocity models where the medicine comes from, the tribes that hold that medicine, that knowledge. If you work with ayahuasca, there has to be a reciprocity model. You have to be giving back to the communities where this medicine of. You have to be all for the
Yeah.
Amazons. You have to be an activist of protecting the environment. You have to be. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's just spiritual shamanic capitalism.
That's right. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, you can only guide people as far as you have gone, and experience is one of the greatest teachers and part of this. And so to wrap things up, I want to see if we can like create a little soundbite of like the major takeaways. So one thing I want to say is, okay, look for the bridges. India and I, like, we're bridge people. Start to build a community by reaching out to people who can answer your questions about how to find this work. Do it with community, whether that means working in a safer or if you're working like one on one or in a small group with like someone who gets to know everyone, or like India mentioned in Purdue, a large retreat center, but a lot of time spent getting to know people and for them getting to know each other. Like, you want to feel safe in the community. Make sure there's reciprocity. Be curious about the lineage of the training that the facilitator has come from. Do they even have a lineage, right? What is their shamanic ethic? Checking in on that, which also comes with lineage training. Like, do they know how to manage the space? And what are their protocols for handling, you know, really challenging, intense situations? If someone, like you said, lies in their intake, who are the doctors on hand? Where's the closest hospital? How are they going to get you there? Anything else you want to add to the bullet points?
Yeah, no, there's resources out there. just tap into the resources and everything you said. Yeah.
Yeah, and let yourself be guided. Don't feel the pressure. If someone shows up on your doorstep and has medicine, it doesn't mean it's the call for you. Like, really check with yourself. Do what it means to pray. What does it look like for you to ask for support, ask for guidance, pay attention, listen, and slow down. I think that's the biggest message here with slow down. So
Yeah,
before
I
we
think I
wrap,
I I
oh, go
think I
ahead.
just wanna add one of the things that, seems important is that, because it's becoming sort of like a badge of honor or like a trophy collection to sit in ceremonies in this, new age of spiritualism, I feel like it's important to say that it takes a long time to integrate one journey. It could take
Can
years to integrate one
absolutely
journey. And it depends on all of the factors that we mentioned, the space setting, the people around you, the facilitators, the shaman, the medicine, where it came from, how it was cultivated, how it was sang, the day, the time of the it's so many factors play
so
into.
many.
So, yeah, by jumping from ceremony to ceremony, I believe you're diluting your energy, you're losing your chi, you're losing your wholeness, you're opening to more possibilities of different spirits, entities, energies to come into your field, to tag along with you if you don't have practices of cleansing, of ritual, of moon rituals, of water rituals, things that are shown by our ancestors. Yeah, just know that this is real. It does affect people, and people do die in these spaces, and it is our responsibility to ask deep questions, and if the questions are not answered, is a no for you to go to that place if they cannot answer those tough questions, and if they're not slowing it down. For me, 1 day ceremony should at least have 3 days in that space that you're going to. So if you're going to sit just once, at least 3 days should be count, like it should be organized by the facilitator, the retreat, whoever, for you to at least land. That's
Yep.
the minimum. But
Mhm.
then before then, you've had to had enough time online together and after. So integration, take it slow, abuse it. When we abuse it, it's just going to kick us. And it gets confusing because now we're in the mind of Carl Jung and all these stories, archetypes, and things, and we never get to really focus on the one message or the one thing that we needed to focus on that first ceremony to graduate, to initiate ourselves, to bring us to wholeness, to break the pattern, to heal, to then sit and say, do I need another ceremony? Is it
Mhm.
necessary? What is it going to do? And that takes years. For me, it takes years. It's yeah, just honor the medicine, honor that some of the medicine take 30 years for it to just come to your place of ceremony, the Wirikuta, the Peyote, the Wirarike people. So some yeah, some medicines they take a long time to get to you. So can we also honor that slowness of the medicine so that we can
Mhm.
slow down our intake? These are
Mhm.
resources we're taking, and we're taking them for granted sometimes.
Yeah, we don't wanna compound the lessons. Like we mentioned before, Westerners are bringing a lot in, so much on their own plate and so much from their ancestry, their heritage, like, it's a lot of work, and I wanna drive something home really clearly around the possibility of, like, what happens in the spiritual space, the shamanic space. Like, if the person leading a ceremony can't handle an exorcism or can't handle a spirit possession, like, don't go there because that is not as uncommon as people think. And it is a necessary ethic to be able to handle that kind of like transference and kind of transference of energies. And so, okay, before
How
we
do you do
wrap,
that, Ganke? How do you know if the person is ready to do that? Like, if they're capable of doing that, you know?
that's a big question. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's something worth being curious about and like asking them frankly and seeing how they respond. Before we
Yes.
wrap, are there any sorts of like offerings or something you have to give the community that like, you can be a resource for? Maybe you have some events coming up or, some things of that nature?
Yes, thank you for asking. Yeah, right now there is a program that is launching October 25, 2025, which is a cacao facilitator, ceremonialist, medicine carrier program. Is the medicine of cacao, I believe, is also a sacred plant, a master
Absolutely.
sacred plant. And so, yeah, my prayer with this program is for me to really honor the lineage of Macabeca Berber indigenous people, the matriarchy, and the stories around cacao, why we use cacao, the rituals and the songs, and why is it important. So if you're a medicine carrier of this medicine, then you'll learn how to source, how to ethically source, why is it important to do reciprocity models with indigenous communities, how to honor the medicine, and how to carry the medicine from one place to another in a sacred way. So that's coming up October 25th. You can go to my website for that, indiamayorga.com, or my Instagram, which is the same handle, India Mayorga. And there's free resources. There's a guide also that is going to pop up soon, which is how to facilitate mushroom ceremonies. And that's just my 2 cents because of the conversations that we're having. I feel that the more resources that are free and available,
Mhm.
hopefully we're here to be in service of that path, and that the more that we share, the more that we get to see that in alignment and in our, beautiful unfolding of lives. So those are the things that are coming up at the moment. So yeah, if you want to connect with me, you could do so via the website or the Instagram.
Beautiful. Thank you, India. It's been a pleasure to speak with you. Like I really so much appreciate everything that you bring to these conversations, your experience, your ethic, your clarity, the authority that I feel from you and your experience, and your passion for it. Like just it's really good to know you and that you're in this community. So deep bow. Thank you very much.
Aho, same. Thank you, brother. Gracias. Mia, mia. Good to speak to you guys.
And those of you tuned in, thanks for watching. More to come.